but so free from the barriers of civil law and unchecked by the existence of any privileged aristocracy, no Turkish sultan could openly disagree with impunity the obligations and restraints of the religious law of the Mohammedans. He combines legislative with executive power, but his Hati Sharifs or imperial edicts are regarded as subordinate to the three primary sources of law, which are the Quran itself, the written word of God, the Sunnah of traditional sayings of the Prophet, and the sentences of or decision of the four first great imams or patriarchs of the Mohammedan religion. The edict of princes are called orfi, which means supplemental. The collection of the edicts which successive sultans pronounce on each ecclesiastical or temporal emergency not provided for in the first three sources of Mohammedan law is called Kanunname, the book or the code of canons, from the Greek word kanon, which has been applied by the Turkish jurists to political as well as to ecclesiastical legislation. By ancient and long-continued custom, the Sultan, before the execution of any important political act, obtains its sanction by a solemn declaration or fatwa of the chief mufti in its favor. Instances occur in Turkish history where the refusal of the mufti has caused the foreigner to abandon his project, and some writers have represented this officer as exercising an effective constitutional check on the royal prerogative and possessing a veto like that of the old Roman tribunes or the Polish nobles. But the fact of the mufti being removable from office at the royal will, like your judges before 1714, shows how erroneous are such theories. When a resolute and not unpopular sultan is on the throne, the mufti is a mere massive instrument in his hands. So that sagacious rulers in Turkey, as elsewhere, have understood the policy of sometimes showing a seeming deference of judicial rebuke, and the deep devotion most of the sultans to their religion must have made them to some extent really value the solemn opinions of the highest interpreters of their law, which is based upon their religion. When indeed the reign is feeble and unsuccessful, the opposition of the mufti, seconded by the hoarse voice of insurrection round the palace walls, may be truly formidable, and his declaration that the sultan is a breaker of the divine law, a tyrant and unfit to govern, forms a sentence of deposition which popular violence has often carried into effect. In truth, with a martial and high-spirited people earnestly attached to the national religion and keenly sensitive as to their national honor, such as the Ottoman Turks have ever been, the worst practices of despotic sovereignty are and ever must be curbed by the practice of armed resistance and popular vengeance. As we proceed in this history, we shall often see the heads of the sovereign ministers fall at the people's bidding, and we shall become familiar with scenes of this dethronement and regicide. These wild and terrible remedies of the evil of absolute monarchy have often in Turkey, as elsewhere, been cruelly misapplied. They have often degenerated into mere military mutinies or into the sordid and anarchical riotings of a city rebel. But they have preserved the Ottoman race from utter prostration, and they are less odious than the series of domestic and oligarchical assassinations, by which despotism has been tempered in the rival empire of the Tsar. The implicit and religious loyalty of the Ottoman nation to the House of Osman, however roughly they may have dealt with individual members of it, has been uniform and undiminished. It is from that family alone that the Padishah, the Emperor, the Zilullah, the shadow of God, as the Sultan is styled, can be supplied. Governors of provinces have frequently revolted against the sovereign authority. They have made themselves locally independent and carried on wars on their own account, even against the sovereign himself. But they have always professed titular allegiance to the royal house, nor has any adventurous Seraskier or Pasha ever attempted to seat a new dynasty on the throne of Constantinople. The certain continuity with which sultans of the race of Osman in lineal male descent from their great founder have for 4 centuries held that throne offers a marked contrast to the rapid vicissitudes with which imperial families rose and fell during the age of the Greek Empire. Nor can the annals of any of the royal houses of Western Christendom show us, like the Turkish, an unbroken succession of 30 sovereigns, without the sceptre ever lapsing of the spindle and without the accession of a collateral branches. The will of the Sultan has been, from the earliest period of the Turkish history to the reign of Abdülmecid and mainspring of the Ottoman government, and the demonstrating its plenary importance, we have been led far beyond the times of the conqueror of Constantinople. In continuing our examination of the Turkish institutions as organized by the legislation of that prince, there will be less need to deviate from the chronological regulatory. The figurative language of the institutes of Mohammed II, still employed by his successors, describes the state under the martial metaphor of a tent. The lofty gate of the royal tent, where oriental rulers of old state administer justice, denotes the chief seat of government. The Italian translation of the phrase "La Porta Sublima" has been adopted by Western nations with slight modification to suit their respective language and by the Sublime Porte. We commonly mean the Imperial Ottoman government. The Turkish legists and historians depict the details of their government by imagery drawn from the same metaphor of a royal tent. The dome of the state is supported by four pillars. These are formed by first the viziers, second the judges, third the defterdars, treasurers, and fourth the nishanjis, the secretaries of state. Besides this, there are the outer ages, that is to say the military rulers, and the inner ages, that is to say the rulers employed in the courts. There is also the order of the ulema, or men learned in the law. The viziers were regarded as constituting the most important pillar that upheld the fabric of the state. In Mohammed's second time, the viziers were four in number. Their chief is Grand Vizier. In the highest of all offices, both of the dignitaries, of the sword, and of the pen, the legal order supplied the second pillar of the state. The chiefs of the legal order were, in the time of Mohammed, the two Kajaskers, who respectively presided over the judicial establishments of Europe and Asia. The other high legal dignitaries, who were at that time next in rank to the Kazaskers, were first the Hoja, who was the tutor of the Sultan and the Prince Royal; second, the Mufti, the authoritative expounder of the law; and thirdly, the Judge of Constantinople. As has been mentioned, the third and fourth state pillars consisted of the officers of the exchequer, who were called defterdars, and of the secretaries, who were termed nishanjis. The Great Council of State was named the Divan, and in the absence of the Sultan, the Grand Vizier was its president. The other viziers and the Kazaskers took their stations on his right, the Defterdars and the Nishanjis on his left. The tezkereci's, or officials charged the present reports on the condition of each department of the state, stood in front of the Grand Vizier. The divan was also attended by the Reis Effendi, a general secretary whose power afterwards became more important than that of the Nishanjis, by the Grand Chamberlain and the Grand Marshal, and a train of other officials of the court. The Grand Vizier had the power of convoking a special divan at his own palace when the judge is necessary, and to him was instructed the custody of the imperial seal. Besides the military aides, who were very numerous, many officials in the civil departments held the rank of aga, which means ruler. The administration of the provinces was in the time of Mohammed II principally entrusted to the beys and beydar-beys. These were the natural chiefs of the class of feudatories, whom their tenure of office obliged to serve on horseback in time of war. They mustered under the sanjak the banner of the chief of their district, and the districts themselves were thence called sanjaks, and their rulers sanjak beys. The title of pasha, though familiar to us when speaking of a Turkish provincial ruler, is not strictly a term implying territorial jurisdiction or even military authority. It is a title of honor, meaning literally the Shah's or sovereign foot, and implying that the person to whom that title was given was one whom the sovereign employed. The classical reader will remember that among the ancient Persians, the king's officers were called the king's eyes and the king's hands. The title of Pasha was not at first applied among the Ottomans exclusively to those officials who commanded armies or ruled provinces or cities. Of the 5 first pashas that are mentioned by Ottoman writers, there were literally men. By degrees this honorary title was appropriated to those whom the Sultan employed in way and set over districts and important towns, so that the word pasha became almost synonymous with the word governor. The title padishah, which the Sultan himself bears, and which the Turkish diplomats have been very jealous in allowing to Christian sovereign, is an entirely different word and means the great, the imperial shah or sovereign. In the time of Mohammed II, the Ottoman Empire contained in Europe alone 36 sanjaks and banas, round each of which assembled about 400 cavalries. The entire military, horse, and foot of empire in both continents was more than 100,000, without reckoning the irregular bands of the Akinji and others. The ordinary revenues of the state amounted to more than 2 million ducats. The emissaries